27th of July, Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos.
How's everyone today?
Rabbi Furst, I may have to leave. I'm expecting a medical person to come, and I need to work with him. So if I do leave, then my wife will take over the hosting. So it shouldn't affect you.
Okay, fine. Just let us know, and hopefully you can stick with us as long as possible. Shem. Okay. Yeah. Good morning. It's Rabbi Shlomo Furst here. Shiva Samanapshi. Here in Shalom Care of Zoom. This is our first year. We're learning in the Eicha. We're in the second parak of Eicha. And we can continue on. Let's see where we left off. Okay.
Did we finish Aleph?
Yes, we did. And I believe we got to
I think we're on Zion.
Zion.
Oh,
Let's see.
not the
Buddha, right? Like a garden. Yes, Zion is correct. You're right, Lou. Okay. Yeah. Anyone like to do some reading? Can have the honors.
I can read, but if I have to leave, I guess somebody else just take over.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair enough.
All right. Zanach. Let's see, find the place over here. Adoshem mize becho nier mikdasho hisgir biyad oyev chomas ar minoseha kol nas nu beves Hashem kiyom moed. So Hashem rejected his altar. He abolished his sanctuary. He handed over to the enemy the walls of the citadels. They raised a noise. They made a noise in the house of Hashem. Like the day of a festival.
What's that supposed to mean?
That seems funny. The ending of the sentence doesn't seem to fit with the. It made
Right.
it look like a festival.
Okay, which pasuk are we on?
This is
Zion.
Parak Pasuk Zion, second Parak Pasuk Zion.
Gotcha.
Kiyom Moyed. It was Rashi says Kiyom Moyed Hayasmekim Umishorim Besoichai Bekol Ram. They apparently this is apparently the enemy, right? They the enemy, right?
The enemy made the noise.
Yeah, they were making, they were rejoicing with shmorim and singing the socha within it, Bekol Ram, and with loud voices. Kain nitnu oyevim decharvenu koil simcha. So it was given to our enemies during our destruction a sound of joy. They were rejoicing. Our enemies were rejoicing in our destruction, which I guess that's only reasonable, right? That doesn't seem to be too unusual. Usually when an enemy is victorious, they're very happy, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, I would be rejoicing.
Yeah, it's only logical that they would do such a thing like that.
It strikes me as a strange way to word it. And I think maybe it's hinting that it's a mita keneged mita. That, it could have said that the enemy was joyous, the enemy rejoiced, the enemy shouted, but to say that it was like a moed for them, I think maybe is more of an implication that there's a mita keneged mita here.
What do you mean? What meter can it mean would there be?
That they were rejoicing, they were acting like it was a festival, because we weren't acting like it. We weren't when the festival was there. We weren't acting like it was a festival.
That might be a reference to the previous pasuk we had. 1 minute. Previously, let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. We have Shabboson. There was a reference to the to Shabbos and the festivals.
Right, in Pasuk Vav.
Yeah.
It says, Shichet Moado Shikach Hashem.
Oh, very good, very good. Thank you. Right, thank you, Mayor. Right, you see that's a reference to our forgetting the festivals and the Shabbat. And this was, as you say, very well, Mita Keneged Mita. Yes, very good. That's good. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Chet, Chashav Hashem the Hashchis Ko Mas Bas Tzion Nata Kav Lo He Shiv Yado Mi Ba Leah Vayavel Chel V'chol Me Yachdav Lalu. Okay, so Hashem thought to destroy the wall. The daughter of Zion, the wall of the daughter of Zion. He stretched a line and did not relent from devouring he made a rampart and wall mourn. Together they languished.
Very confusing, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't get that sentence at all.
Okay, 1 second. So
He has not withdrawn his hand from destroying. Therefore, he made, that's Hashem, made the rampart and the wall to lament. They languished together.
you're right, they failed. So Akash Baruch Hu considered to destroy the wall.
What is the wall of the daughter of Zion?
Well, that's a reference to, I believe, the Chomesh Yerushalayim, the
Yeah.
walls around Yerushalayim.
Why is it called the wall of the daughters of Jerusalem?
Because the wall represents not just a protection, right? The wall is a symbolic representation of our separateness from the rest of the world, from amongst the goyim. That is a representation of our necessity of being separate, right? And the separateness is most importantly to be kept, especially by the Bas Yishlaim or Bas Tzion. Tzion, the expression Tzion is not simply a reference to the Jewish people. It's speaking about the elite of the Jewish people. So if that separation is broken down between the elite of Israel and the rest of the world, so that's a complete breakdown in the fabric of the Jewish people. That's why it's also, you see, there's another expression, Sudis Tzion, the fortress of Tzion, right? One second. One second. Yes, Roy, you want to say something?
Yes, we've covered the wall. What about the rampart? I was going to suggest that the rampart is a rampart is a sort of a means of getting up to of scaling a wall, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all. It's also part of the defenses of the wall.
Right.
The wall itself is a defensive protection, but the ramparts are a way of doing battle along the wall or during through the various different ways you can. The wall is a solid barrier between the enemy and those inside the wall, but the ones inside the wall have to do battle somehow also. So the ramparts are the places where you can use the vantage points in the wall to do battle from those on the outside of the wall.
So they languish together. So maybe it's to do with that as all what do you call make a wall around the walls. Sort of protections against protection that we make in order to avoid doing a het. So I think sort of the ramparts are part of that as well, that idea too, and we just discarded the ways of protecting ourselves from the goyim ideas and not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So the ramparts are more to do with us, and the wall is more to do with Sion.
Right. Good. Okay.
But I'm a little confused by this rampart metaphor. A rampart, if I'm understanding, a rampart is an access that the enemy builds to be able to climb up to the wall. So the rampart, if I'm correct, then the rampart and the wall are opposites. Why is it putting them together and saying he made them both mourn?
No, the ramparts. Again, the ramparts are the offensive parts of the wall. Meaning a wall, all a wall is, if you have a solid wall, that's just making a barrier between you and the enemy. But you can't do anything offensively behind the wall. So you need ramparts. You need ramparts by which you can use the wall's height and to various different places in the wall. You can use the wall to your advantage to defend yourself from within the wall. So the ramparts are part of the fortifications of the wall. They're not something which the enemy is doing. The ramparts are part of the wall's strategic areas where it could be used to mount an offensive against the enemy that's on the outside. That's a rampart.
Okay, I see. In other words, the ramparts are on the inside of the wall. They're the structures that allow the soldiers to climb up.
And also the if you just look at the walls of the old city, you have the various different places on the top of the wall where they have places where people can peer out and through, or even within the wall itself, they have different places where you have, they're not exactly windows, but they're places where you can use the wall to use it as a aid in terms of protecting yourself from within it. So those ramparts are the fortifications that the wall has within it and upon it that allow you to wage war against those on the outside. So Kodesh Baruch Hu brought down, he effectively neutralized the wall and the ramparts of the wall, that they, as I said, they both languished together. They failed, meaning the walls and the ramparts of the wall failed and were ineffective against the enemy.
I see.
Yeah, I think that's what's referring to here.
Okay. All right. So we're up to Tet.
Yeah.
Tavu ba'aretz she'areha ibad v'shibad baricheha malka v'sareha bagoyim ein Torah gam nevi'eha lo matzu chazon me Hashem. Okay, so it means her gates have sunk.
This is a continuation of the previous pasuk.
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
This is a continuation of the previous pasuk, that just as the wall and the rampart were ineffective because everything sunk, whether actually it sunk into the ground or symbolically it sunk into the ground, but it was all the wall and its ramparts and the gates were ineffective in stopping the enemy.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. So her bars were utterly shattered. Her king and officers among the nations there's no Torah. Also, her prophets did not find chazon is a vision.
Yeah, one of them is like prayer. They didn't find their prophecy. They weren't given a prophecy from Hashem.
I'm sorry, I missed that word. They weren't given what?
The prophecy.
The prophecy. Oh, the prophecy. They could not find a prophecy from Hashem. Okay, so what is this? Her king and officers are among the non-Jews. There is no Torah. What's that referring to?
The leadership is gone.
Right. There's no. They first of all, they're like the so to speak, the political, the malchus, the king and his ministers are gone. They're amongst the goyim. There's no Torah, meaning we don't, as Rashi says, Ein bem mora or there was no one to lead them in Torah. There's no one to guide them in understanding the Torah. And then also the prophets also were lacking their vision, their prophecy.
So the king and the ministers are the ones that are responsible for teaching Torah to the people?
No, there's three different levels here. One's the king and his ministers, then there's the Torah, and then there's finally the prophets.
I think these kings and princes refer to the goyim,
No.
God ones.
No, these are Jewish kings and princes that aren't
I
there.
remember
They've
those.
been removed.
Yeah.
There's no, they have no control over anything anymore.
Mhm.
It was when we became conquered. So the first thing they did was capture the king and his entourage, that they shouldn't have any power. Right? That's the first thing the enemy does: capture the king.
Mm.
So,
I thought that the king and the princes among the nations means being divided up. That Jerusalem and divided up as spoils, and different goyim have been given them as to rule over or whatever.
well,
That's what I
yeah,
saw.
but this is big goyim. The king and his ministers are amongst the goyim, meaning they're not in their place.
Okay.
Yeah.
No Torah.
So when it says there is no Torah,
Right.
why is there no Torah?
That's a big question you're asking. Why is there no Torah? There's a whole that I mean, you could ask why didn't the prophets have their prophecy? Right? There was no Torah, and there were no prophets. And Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, was removing all of our siyata d'shmaya, the siyata d'shmaya that we have, that the way we are successful is through Torah and through when we had prophets, he had prophets. So Hashem removed that. He didn't want us to have leaders. He didn't want us to be led in the proper way. We would, it's like the opportunity was now lost. When we had the opportunity to listen to the prophets, we didn't listen to the prophets. When we had the opportunity to fulfill and listen to the Torah, then we didn't do it. So if we didn't do it, so now those things are taken away from us. So that's the whole. You have to understand what the whole purpose of the Gullus is. The whole purpose of Gullus is that we should become not relying on the fact that we have these things and take them for granted. But rather we should value them because we don't. By not having them, we become to value them. That we realize their true worth. When the time when we had prophets, when the time when we had Torah, and when we had a king and his ministers, if we didn't appreciate that and relate to the Torah, to the prophecy and the rulership of the kings in a proper way, so we misused the advantage that they were supposed to give us. So Hashem took them away from us.
So I can understand that Hashem helped our enemies, so the enemies were able to win the battles and capture the kings and the officers and take them away. I can understand that Hashem withdrew the Shekhinah, so to speak, from the prophets, so the prophets no longer had the ability to prophesy. But what I can't understand is that Hashem took away our ability to learn Torah.
Took away our teachers.
Yeah, right. That's what Rashi says. Rashi says that there's no Torah, that it's Ein Moira Hora. There's no one there to properly teach us the way of how to live according to Torah.
Were the conditions such that you couldn't learn Torah anyway? I mean, you would sort of have to be defending yourselves and having to fend for yourselves, and that, just simply to stay alive.
Yeah, I mean you're referring to one of the ways why we lost Torah. We lost Torah because we were preoccupied with other things, right? So that's something which the pasuk is not really talking about, but that's definitely one of the reasons why we had no Torah. Because again, I mean, why was the Mishnah written down? Originally, the Mishnah had to be Torah Sheba'al Peh, had to be transferred from Talmud, from Rebbe to Talmud, verbally, without being written down. But when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi realized that the gullus was becoming too great and the distractions were becoming too heavy and burdensome upon the Jewish people, that they would not be able to remember the learning they're supposed to learn, so he decreed that the Torah could now be written down, so it shouldn't be forgotten. Because to remember and to understand Torah properly takes a lot of concentrated effort. And if you're being distracted, especially by wars and conquering nations, then they're on the verge of going into gullus. So it's definitely something which is going and liable to be lost. Yeah, that's what it means, Ein Torah.
Okay, so 10, Yeshu la'aretz yidmu ziknei vas tzion ha'elu afar al rosham chagru sakim horidu la'aretz Roshan b'sulos Yerushalayim. Okay, so the elders of the daughter of Zion sit on the ground in silence. They have strewn ashes on their heads, and they wear sackcloth. The maidens of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground.
Right. Um, right. So, mhm. Okay. Rashi here Rashi brings down a medrash, which that the pasuk here is referring to the Sanhedrin, right? The Sanhedrin, that's the Zikne Bas Sion, that's the Sanhedrin. Yoshvu La'aretz, the Sanhedrin was sitting on the ground, all offer Rosham, and they put upon their heads dust. Harguru Sakim, they wore sackcloth. Barida La'aretz, Rosh Basulas Yerushalayim, they put their heads in sackcloth and hands were impaled upon the ground. So Rashi says this is a reference to the Medrash that when Nebuchadnezzar came to conquer Israel, because Melech Hiskiyahu had taken a neder that he wouldn't reveal that Nebuchadnezzar had eaten the wild animals, the rabbits, when he were in a chai, and whole thing. So, and he was over his neder. He went to the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin had nullified his neder. So Nebuchadnezzar, now in vengeance, captured the Sanhedrin, had them sit on the ground, and had them read over and translate the Torah for him. And when we came to the Parshas Nedarim, he said that you have to go to a Chacham and mata the neder. And they said, so what about Yizkiyahu with his shvua? And so when they came to that, he had them the hair of their heads tied to the tails of horses, and they were all dragged through the streets of Yerushalayim in their deaths. So that's what this pasuk is a reference to here. Yeah. Okay. Yud Aleph.
Kalu vade maos einai cha mar meru mei nishpach laaretz kivedi al shever bas ami be tef olel vionek bir ko vos kir yah. Okay, this is a hard one. My eyes fail with tears. My insides churn. My liver
Covered, right?
spills
Yeah.
on the ground. And at the shattering of my people, while babes and sucklings swoon in the streets of the city.
That's because of the famine which was taking place. Then there was a famine because of the siege of the city. Okay. Yeah. Rashi. No. Okay. Let's go to you, Gimel. Oh, you had base. Sorry, you had base.
V'imo sam yomru aye dagan vayayin behis at pam kehalal bir kovos. Eater behish tapech nafsham el chek e mosam. Okay, so 12.
So this is a continuation of the previous pasuk. The previous pasuk referred to the infants, right? The infants who are were fainting in the streets, and they were saying this is a kind of the infants would say to their mothers.
Yeah, they say to their mothers, where is bread and wine? As they swoon, like a dying man in the streets of the city. And their soul ebbs away.
Right.
In the lap of their mother.
Correct. Right. Rashi doesn't have any explanation for this. I guess it's pretty straightforward. It's an example of how serious the famine was in the time of this destruction.
Okay. I spilled some wax on my Eicha, I guess, in the past year. What is the let's see, where am I? You Gimel. Oh, I'll get to it. I'll ask you when I get. Oh no, it's the first word. Is it ma?
Ma, that's right. The first word of Gimel is ma. Correct.
Okay, ma aidech ma adameh lecha la'alach Abbas Habas Yerushalayim ma ashreh lach. What is this next word? Va'anachamech. Va'anachamech. Bisulas. Bas Tzion. Ki gadol kayam shiv reich mi yirpa lach. Okay, so 13. With what shall I bear witness for you? To what can I compare you? O daughter of Jerusalem, to what can I liken you to comfort you. O maiden daughter of Zion. Your ruin is great. As the sea. Who can heal you?
Right. So Rashi explains Ma'idach Uma Ed Malach. You know, what kind? What there's no comparison that can be made to you. That Rashi says Matit Ma'alash that it's a wonder on how great the destruction was, right? That even to some other nation, nothing happened like this before. And Kishabat Sarah because and how what can you say to comfort you? Then when Rashi says when a person has some type of calamity or distress occurring to him, so a person can say to him, it happened to me also. But here there's no possibility of that happening. There was no such thing, so great a destruction that ever happened as it was to Yerushalayim. So that would be a fair way to comfort them. Because usually the way to comfort is, you commiserate with somebody that sometimes had the same type of thing happen. But here there was incomparable to any other things, but there's no type of comfort that Yerushalayim, the Jewish people could have because there was nothing like this that ever occurred. Let's see. Maybe it's worth stopping here. Let's see. So we're at Pasuk Yud-Daled, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Let's stop here and we'll continue this tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Lou. All right. So maybe you'll be continuing. We'll see what you let us know. And,
We'll see. During the break, I'm going to call and find out why they haven't called.
okay, very
But
good.
they
Okay.
told me between 9 and 11, so it could be they're just going to be on the later end of that.
Fine, no problem. Okay, we'll continue with the Mr. Brusher in a few moments. And Roy, have a good afternoon and hope to see everyone else, man, Eliezer Tzvi, soon to be.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Be well.
Be well. See you soon.